Well, Sistas fans, we are back for reviews for Season 4B, Episode 12, Goodbye at the Door. Had a great time watching the episode live last night, live tweeting, doing the live stream on YouTube afterwards, and, waking up to a bunch of, comments and whatnot. But a quick segue, DeVal actually shared my tweet from last night, a meme I made for Instagram, and it was the one with Nick Cannon. I'll put it on screen, and then even Sistas retweeted that, so I'm quite happy. This is one of those, I don't even care what happens for the rest of the day. My day has been made based off that alone. I love making the memes and whatnot. It's just, a fun thing to kind of, pass the time. Not to mention, it's funny stuff. I mean, I chuckle at my own memes and videos sometimes, but more to the point, I thought this was a decent enough episode. Hell of a lot better than the mid-season finale. Some things I feel were missing. I feel like there were slight continuity shifts that Tyler Perry made, but other than that, yeah. 8 out of 10. I think 8 out of 10 is a solid score. Like I said, I feel like this definitely was better than the mid-season finale and then the episode prior to that, episode 10. So, Goodbye at the Door. And before moving forward in the review, just a friendly reminder. If you have not done so already, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon and select all. That way you're notified when I go live, because I plan on, unless something happens where I can't do a live, where let's say it's a terrible storm in the area and my Wi-Fi isn't up to par, or, tech issues, I do plan to go live after every episode. I plan to watch it live and tweet, as well as upload a crap ton of videos because I have a lot to talk about in regards to this episode. And I want to make sure you don't miss out, and also that the channel, the numbers get boosted now that Sistas is back on the air. So, let me just say up front, and I'm not going to harp on this because I've said this enough. I do not care for any of the Maurice, Q, and Calvin scenes. But I will applaud the episode for holding that crap to like the back half. I mean, the first few scenes, from the scene at Hayden's place all the way to when Fatima left Zach's house, I thought the episode was pretty solid. I really enjoyed all of it. But then as soon as we got to Q on the couch, I knew here we go with the bullshit. Let me just talk about those scenes real quick, because there were like 2 of them, right? When he goes into Maurice's room, and then the next morning when he's kicked out. Let's just talk about that real quick and go about the review. Q gets up, goes to Maurice's room, gets in bed. I just want to be close to you, and then I'm just so alone out there. Well, you're not alone. There's Calvin, me, and... Do you think I'm dumb? I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to call these people stupid and dumb. Well, I've done it before. It's hard to convince someone that you're not stupid when you are allowing them into your home after they've robbed you, or attempted robbery, held you at gunpoint, tried to kill you and your friend at your job, almost cost you your job, and yet you're, I believe the term is fraternizing with your tormentor / robber. So it's just, Q's in season 5. I've already said this. So if you want the Q stuff to stop, it ain't going nowhere anytime soon. So then Maurice simply kicks him out to the couch, saying that between now and tomorrow morning, when you need to go, you need to find somewhere to bounce to, because you can't stay here. So then we get to the next morning where Calvin's sitting, in the kitchen watching Q sleeping because obviously he doesn't trust him. Maurice comes out. He's getting ready to go to work. Okay, I will admit this scene was pretty funny. When he takes the pans and bashes them together, and, Calvin's reaction to it was funny because as someone who had experience in apartments, yeah, you definitely don't want to disturb the peace because they had those, like, quote-unquote quiet hours where you couldn't make loud noises at certain times. And based on the morning, being pretty early in the morning, yeah, that's not a good thing for Maurice to do. But the thing about it is, I don't know what was worse, the fact that, Maurice was doing all that nonsense, or the fact that it took Q that long to react to it. And then, instead of doing what, he quote-unquote agreed to do, and what Maurice told him, which was find a place, because we only let you stay for the night, you need to bounce. Where am I going to go? I don't give a damn. Well, I'm going to stay on the porch. No, you're not. Well, look, how about this? I have to stay somewhere between, what do you say, 6 p.m. and 8 a.m., so how about I just leave and I come back, later this evening. Is he deaf? I think we're all deaf after you bang them damn pants together. Calvin, I ain't gonna lie, I laughed at that line. So then he leaves, and then Calvin's like, yeah, he's like a stray cat. And this, I said I wasn't going to harp on this. I know people want me to get to the Fatima stuff. You're like, Jeremy, damn it. Get to the good stuff. There's nothing to talk about here aside from how annoying it is. And it's just I know Tyler has a plan and how these characters are woven together. I know he's about getting people jobs and whatnot, but none of these characters fit the show anymore. They seriously, every scene of this episode felt relevant to the overall plot except for the Calvin, Maurice, and Q stuff, because of how poorly they've been written to integrate Q into the show. It makes them dumber and dumber. I feel like that goes for a lot of characters in the show, where they have to act ways that are stupid in order for other characters to maintain their presence in the series. Even if it all goes into this grand design of a story, when we are almost 4 full seasons in and these characters are making dumb mistakes like this constantly, it's annoying. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Okay, maybe it's not good stuff because I've been saying this since the mid-season finale, when we got trailers and promotional photos and, episode synopsis. I'm not a fan of how Fatima reacted. I'm not going to lie, Crystal looked amazing while she was tearing that place up, but this was not a good reflection on her character. The more that, let's go back to like season 2, for example, the more she started to interact with the sisters, the more she kind of started to act like them, but not in the best way. And people are like, yeah, Fatima's better as like a free agent, and that, she's interacting with Zach, because the more she hangs out with them girls, it's not going to do her any good. And as a result, you have a Fatima who is like a Medea. And I just did not care for this scene because, let me put it this way. When I watched the scene, I don't feel like I reacted to anything in a good way, because what I was seeing was not the Fatima I know from the past. And yes, Fatima did not have a huge role starting out, but she gradually got more screen time, became a recurring character, and now she's in the opening title sequence. That tells you right there, she's obviously not the same Fatima from season 1, season 2. But the Fatima of the past, I feel at least would have been a hell of a lot more reasonable than she was in last night's episode. Case in point, when Fatima rolled up at the end of season 2 to save Andy from the, I'm not even going to call it a beatdown, because Andy was holding her own pretty well against those 2 girls that, the 2 friends that Jasmine, set loose on her in the parking garage. Fatima rolled up, pulled out the gun because it was the heat of the moment, and yeah, she had to de-escalate that situation very quickly. Believe it or not, I think the Fatima we saw basically in the season 3 finale, where she, let those guys beat up on Hayden after she got a punch in, or a few licks in herself with the brass knuckles, and then the Fatima we saw last night, I think the Fatima in the present probably would have shot Jasmine and both of her friends. Because this Fatima is all about the theatrics, as opposed to being calm, cool, collected, and thinking things through. So I was not a fan of the fact that she just decided to take that bat, pull a Babe Ruth, and just tear that entire apartment, living room apart, just because she wasn't getting the answers as to, what the hell did you do to Zach? How do you know Gary? Did you have anything to do with this? What? So the part that got me, I mean, the TV was bad, the glass table, but when she decided to just dump and smash the jar, or the urn, I believe is the correct term, that held Hayden's father's ashes. No. First of all, Jasmine did that shit first. Remember, season 1, she took the urn with Gary's mother's ashes and poured them in the gas tank of his car before setting it on fire. And that was the catalyst that actually got Gary to fight back, leading to her being tossed off the roof of the parking garage. And hell, even like I said in the mid-season finale, Jasmine did it first. Pretty much destroying Gary's car with a baseball bat and graffiti and whatnot. And then, of course, you have Fatima doing the same thing to Hayden's car. This is not Fatima. This is Jasmine 2.0 with a little splash of Medea. So, the more that she's asking questions and not getting the answers she wants, she continues to destroy more and more. And the thing is, here's where the continuity gets wacky. Gary says, hey, Hayden helped me out with a few cases in the past and we just, have known each other since. Does Andy know? But why does it matter? Even later on when Andy calls Fatima, or I think, who was it that called who? Oh yeah, Gary called Andy about Fatima. It's like, why didn't you tell me you knew Hayden? I mean, do you know all of Gary's friends? It just feels like, yeah, you know what? Everybody's supposed to act suspicious towards Gary and Hayden because they can't be trusted. But it's like, where is this coming from? It felt a bit off to me. And it's not like the episode was awful or off-putting, but I was a bit, okay, I'm kind of wondering why Tyler wrote it that way. Gary and Hayden met in season 2, and as Andy pointed out, Fatima was the ones that introduced them to each other because Gary was in jail after the feds arrested him. Hayden was actually looking into the case, and Gary got jealous because all Hayden said was like, yeah, Andy's an amazing woman, in regards to the fact that they're co-workers and, he probably, seen her in action before and was impressed. And as a result, Gary took it as so you know her pretty well, as in, oh, okay, so you and her been messing around. And then Hayden decided to, leave him to his own. Well, I mean, Gary opted not to take Hayden's assistance, and then he got his own people to get him out of jail. So it's almost as if the continuity is, oh, Gary and Hayden have known each other for a long time. Folks, season 2 was not that long ago on the timeline of the show. But maybe he decided to link up with Hayden due to the fact that it's like, hey, you work with Andy and I need to keep eyes and ears on her. So I don't know. It is what it is. So after realizing that things weren't what they seemed, because Zach gives her a phone call saying, hey, I got out of jail. Meet me at the house so we could talk. Did Hayden have anything to do with this? No. And then she's like, I ain't gonna lie, Crystal, the fact that she was able to flip the switch from crazy to calm, like, oh, my bad, just fix the place up. And then she just opted to leave. That was actually kind of funny. But at the same time, I'm like, this was a bit ridiculous. So, Gary actually makes the very wise decision to leave Zach and her alone. And he calls Andy. And I'm thinking to myself, well, first of all, Gary, why don't you do the same thing with Andy and let that girl live her life? So, yeah, she calls Andy about the Fatima situation. And like I already said, she's like, so why didn't you tell me you knew each other? So, okay, whatever. And apparently Gary's like, hey, can I come back over? No, I actually have company. I'm with Paris, having a couple drinks. Remember, Paris was the guy from season 1 and 2. And his mom / grandmother, because the continuity shifted, was the custodian at the law firm, Miss Irene. And they slept together once. And, pretty much Paris was the reason that Gary couldn't touch or have sex with Andy, because he would get infuriated at the thought of her being with somebody else. I don't know. But, yeah, that was just a name drop. Which just goes to show Andy is still... If Paris was still in the show, she would still be utilizing him to make Gary jealous. That's pretty much all it is. Alright, so from there, Andy calls for team. Oh yeah, actually, Gary and Andy will apparently have lunch tomorrow, which I feel like might not happen because of something Andy says later on in the episode in regards to Danny and Sabrina coming by her office to talk about Karen. Rain check? Alright, so Andy calls Fatima. She doesn't like what she did at all. Yeah, me neither, Andy. I'm with you 100%. And, yeah, she mentioned the fact that Hayden was introduced to Gary due to Fatima. And she's going to go over to Zach's house because he got arrested. I don't know why, but he's out. Oh, girl, let me get out of here. I hear sirens. I actually laughed at that bit. Hey, no more bats, no more guns. Just stay out of trouble. All right. So then here's a scene I really like. This was arguably my favorite scene in the episode. The club scene, the dance scene with Sabrina and Bio on their date. I mean, they had like a packed house, they up in there dancing, the music, the cinematography, Sabrina smiling. This was just a great scene. Even before a word was spoken between Bio and Sabrina, this was a very, very, very well done scene. Yet again, Tyler Perry living up to the Tyler Perry Show complaints from the Diary of a Mad Black Tweeter segment. And he basically said, hey, I'll have customers in the bank, I'll have customers in the salon and whatnot. It was all due to COVID regulations. And that's not to say Tyler hasn't been keeping up with people being healthy with the test and whatnot at Tyler Perry Studios. So to see a packed house dancing and whatnot was just something that was amazing. I don't know. It was just, again, I can't stop praising it. Very well done. But just to get to the gist of it, Sabrina is having a great time. And I was just laughing at the tweets I was doing. What was it? I tweeted out, tell me something. Have we ever seen Sabrina smile so much while she was dating Calvin? The answer that people responded with was no, absolutely not. But, she's drunk, but she had a great time. Doesn't want the night to end, but she has to go home, for work tomorrow. And he's like, well, if you don't want the night to end, would you like to go someplace quieter? And, maybe my place, maybe your place. No, I don't think I'd be able to control myself, and I wouldn't want to ruin a great night. So he agreed to take her home and say goodbye at the door, which was the title of the episode. I thought that would be Karen related, but it was not. And that's about it. He leads her out of there. And that was a good scene. It really was. All right, so we go over to Zach and Fatima. Fatima comes over, and they're pretty much, happy to see each other. And before Zach gets an answer for why Fatima looks so, hair is fritzy and she looks exhausted, and he's like, what's going on? No, you tell me what's going on. So he hands over the court papers like they were I ain't gonna lie, he handed over the court papers and only to have Fatima chew them out. It reminded me of a kid showing his mom his report card and gets chewed out for making like bad grades. So that was essentially what this scene was. And, he's saying that it's not his kid, but the preview pretty much dissected this scene. I mean, there's nothing for me to really talk about. Fatima corrects him on the whole, look, Zach, when you were having sex for sport, how do you know you don't have kid or kids? I mean, it's the fact that, were you faithful to Karen? No. It's like, but do you believe me, Fatima? Somewhat. I mean, that's fair. I'll admit, Fatima handled the situation with Zach and the kid better than she handled the situation when she thought Hayden had something to do with him being arrested. Seriously, she was somewhat skeptical, and it makes sense because when he was a dog panting in the heat, ain't no telling how many puppies he got. There you go. All right. So it turns out that she's actually more angry with herself because of what she did to Hayden's place. And it's funny how, Zach calls her out for doing the most and whatnot. And the fact that, wait, is that glass in your hair? Why are you putting it in your pocket? Evidence. What? But I'm thinking like, well, Zach, you really don't have, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. How many times did you go over to Karen's house to get into a fight with Aaron and wreck her place? Wasn't there a time where it's like, you wrecked her TV, knocked over her little bonsai tree her grandmother gave her and whatnot? So, and then when you broke into the hotel room when they were about to have sex, and then you literally got into it with him there and got arrested. So, yeah, I mean, Zach, come on now. But, okay, I will say this. In those situations, Zach knew what he was getting into. It was like, yo, I'm about to stop this. This clown is awful. But Fatima, she didn't have all the facts. And I feel like what made Fatima's outburst more frustrating to deal with as a fan is that we know that she knows better. But regardless, they kind of cut things short with the whole, look, I can't stay here, shower, mess around, because I got work in the morning, so I'm going to go home and freshen up. Zach says, hey, I'll come over later. I'm just going to stay here a couple more hours to finish up because apparently things have been moving forward with the house so much that he could actually start moving his stuff in tomorrow. So that's good. Because didn't the guy in the previous episode say something along the lines of, yeah, he can move in by this weekend. So it looks like, thankfully, his crew will get paid. But that's pretty much... Oh, yeah, Fatima also tells him to take a shower because he smells like jail. Hey, I think you ought to be used to that smell by now. Yeah, you think. And what? All that glass in her hair? Come on now. What? Was she crazy? I mean, I love her, but what am I got myself into? So then Zach goes upstairs. And I've already talked about the Q stuff, so I don't need to talk about that. And then we go to the next day. But here's the thing. Given that Fatima had left, here's what I thought would have happened. Didn't Karen tell Danny in the previous episode that she was going over to Zach's in order to try to get him back? And I guess we completely skipped over that because the next scene is Karen, but it's the next morning when she's walking into the salon. So there's that. Not to mention, even though we don't have to see everything, I would have liked to have seen Bio when he dropped Sabrina off at her place. I mean, again, not to talk about this more than I need to, since I spent like the first 7 minutes of the video talking about it. If we would have cut the stuff that happened at Maurice's apartment, we could have had like a 2 or 3 minute scene where, Bio told Sabrina goodnight. And like you could see the temptation in her eyes about not wanting the night to end, but he respectfully said, respected her wishes and left when they got to her door. Or we could have had the moment where Karen tried to go over to Zach's and, got rejected. But no, we just had to have Maurice and Q have stuff going on, which pretty much amounted to nothing. All right, so Karen comes into the salon and Pam is there early opening up. And she's like, we don't open until 10 and you never get here early to open up. Girl, I'm just doing my job. No, you know about the doc. You know about Aaron coming to pick me up. Wait, what are you talking about? So basically, the reason she came over is due to the fact that Jenna, the woman who would keep popping up at the salon asking Karen about Zach, arrested him last night. This leads to a whole thing about, what did he get arrested for? I don't know, girl. He needs to get a lawyer. Pam, it's like, he didn't call you? No, I bet Fatima got him out. And I'm just thinking, like, it's interesting to me that Karen would even worry about why he got arrested and stuff like that, given the fact that she was the reason he got arrested last time when he was innocent. So, from there, Aaron actually comes in and, Pam is told to get to work because of the fact that it's like, you're too nosy. But before they actually leave to go to the doctor's office, again, the preview pretty much gave this scene away of Karen telling Aaron not to get his hopes up, and she actually did look at his calculations and dates and whatnot, yet is still in disbelief that he is the father, and he goes simp level 500 and basically is like, look, just know that I'm with you no matter what. And they go and see what the doctor says. Like, okay, so Andy is actually looking up something on her computer and messages Danny about it. Turns out El Fuego is an electrical technician because she found the advertisement for it online. And Danny reminds him, look, well, he was smart in school, computer science degree, and, maybe he's stripping just to pay off his, student loans and whatnot. So from there, the plan is, apparently Andy's going to link up with El Fuego to come to the complex or the penthouse to sweep it to see if there are any, cameras, microphones, basically to see if Gary bugged the place in order to keep an eye on her. And I'm guessing that's actually what's happening, because that could explain why he's looking through a telescope at Andy and Robin in a future episode. So from there, Danny's like, hey, we need to talk about Karen. and they agree to have lunch at Andy's office with Sabrina to go over what happened, because Andy even says, yeah, she came over to my place last night too. Okay, we're almost done here. Sabrina stops by Danny's, and she wants to talk about the whole bio date and how everything went well, and that was the best date I ever had in my life. It was so great. And you know what? If he asks me, then I do want to see him again. You know, I'll just have to wait for him to call and ask me first. And I like how this conversation takes a moment to point out that, yeah, it felt easy with him. I mean, it kind of reminded me of what Preston said to Danny earlier in the season, where, yeah, you know, I've been on these dates, or this date with like Tanya and whatnot, and it was just so easy with her to get to know her, to talk, but it's so difficult with you. In the same way with Calvin and Sabrina, more often than not, these two will go through stuff. That's not to say Sabrina didn't cause some tension between them, mainly because and I guess the best way to put it, with Bio, it doesn't seem his sexuality is in question in the same way it is with Calvin. And as a result, every time Calvin and Sabrina seem to be having a good time, he'll do, say, or wear something that will have her going, eh. So I guess that's the best way to put it. And even better is when, you know, Danny says, you know, yeah, leave the Calvin thing alone. You know, like me and the president, it just doesn't work out. It's like, you know, we just didn't know, it didn't have a lot in common, and it wasn't going to work, and this and that. And thankfully, Sabrina was quick to point out, well, yeah, you let that man go. That was a good man. And I'm not going to harp on it too much, because the episode spoke for itself. Sabrina said what everybody's been saying. It's like she just doesn't know the full story of, like, you know, how Danny was just irredeemably ridiculous in the episode, where she just went on about, you're a grown man, I shouldn't have to tell you what I need, and this and all this other crap. Alright, so from there, she mentions the whole, hey, we're meeting up with Andy for lunch to talk about Karen. Okay, so speaking of Preston, he stops by Zach's house, and when he came in, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm excited to see him, because like I tweeted out, the bromance of Zach and Preston is my favorite, you know, dynamic on the show. So yeah, when he came in, I'm like, wow, okay, you know, how do you know where Zach lived, and well, what's going on here? But turns out, and this is one of those things I don't like the direction that Tyler Perry decided to go. Zach was indeed the person who was hooking up Preston with one black woman after another in order to make Danny jealous, to show that, yeah, I have options and whatnot, and Preston feels bad about it. And remember earlier this season, like, Karen was the one who seemingly was starting shit by saying, you know what, I think Zach is the one that hooked up Preston with that veterinarian. And it's like, what, didn't Preston say Tanya, didn't she even say that we met at a gas station? So the continuity just isn't lining up. And then the other girl that Preston was out with, that Danny approached when she was at a lunch or dinner with Andy, and pretty much made an ass out of herself, apparently Zach was behind that as well. I do not like this whatsoever. The main takeaway of this scene was me thinking, wow, this goes back to me saying all along, you know, when Zach told Danny about buying a duplex and whatnot, if Danny got herself together and, you know, got with Preston and they were good to go, those two could have moved in next to Fatima and Zach, because out of all the women, you know, Fatima and Danny were definitely the most alike. So I could see their dynamic being great. And Preston and Zach are already like, bros from when he was staying at Danny's place. Because I loved when he said, you know, isn't it funny how the roles will reverse? Like, you're knocking on my door for a change, as opposed to, you know, how he would knock on Danny's apartment and whatnot. Keep in mind, he did pay half rent for like a month, so he should have stayed there for a month, but she kicked him out. But essentially, Jake actually comes in, and, you know, Preston introduces himself, and he gets to helping Zach move some boxes around. So Jake is curious how Fatima took the news, and, you know, he was pretty surprised how well she took it. Like Zach said, you know, Fatima's chill. She doesn't, you know, trip out unless we're not honest with each other. But the reason he came over is about the FCC and trying to teach Zach about, other stocks and whatnot, just because you can never be too careful when they start investigating. Also, he reiterates that he would like to go on a double date, Fatima and Zach and him and his girl. So, final scene, Fatima and Hayden's right behind her, and they arrive at work. And before she can actually get to work, he's like, oh no, you're not going anywhere. So, because I got last night on video. So everything you did is like, you know what? It's going to come back to you, because the cops come in and you're like, you're going to go with these fine gentlemen because I'm pressing charges. I'm getting a restraining order. Oh yeah, I'm going to get you fired because, well, you can't be within 50 feet, within 50 feet of me. So we definitely can't work together. And she's like, okay, so where's the but? Huh? You mean the unless, like, all this is going to happen to me unless you do this. Oh, no. I'm going to show you how the legal system works. You just can't go around doing what you do without consequences. So Fatima, you know what? Hey, head held high. She goes with the cops. And I'm not mad at Hayden. I mean, after what she did, hey, it is what it is. But overall, solid episode. Like I said, it had some things I didn't care for. Some things I wish could have been changed slightly. But other than that, this was a great return to the series. And if the remainder of season 4B has at least similar quality to this one, I want to be pretty satisfied. So let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.